And we are live. Welcome to Rijooviness TV.
Hello and good afternoon, good morning or good evening, wherever you're joining us in the world. Clearly, I wasn't ready for that, was I? How fun. Anyway, thank you for joining us wherever you are on Rijooviness TV. Please go and share this with your friends and family and everyone that you know who needs to understand that being wealthy and having money in your life is really, really healthy for you. Because today we have an amazing guest with us, Judy Vee, who is an international bestseller. She has an incredible business which is based all about supporting people to really deserve the freedom that wealth brings you. And she's going to be sharing her wisdom with us today, because a lot of people feel that you can't have both. You can't be spiritual and you can't be wealthy, and that is so untrue. It's all part of the fact that everything affects everything. So as an international speaker, as an author, and as a TV presenter in her own right, we're really excited for you and her to connect today and find out what your money score is and how you can improve it.
And if you'd like to be involved with Rijooviness TV, do feel free to join our live chat group and ask any questions. Judy loves to answer wealth questions and questions all around money and finance and what you can do to remove the blocks that you may have, or any fears, worries, and confusion that you may have around money. Do feel free to write in your questions, get involved, and share with your friends as well. So we look forward to welcoming Judy Vee onto the show. And there she is in the flesh, Judy Vee. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Judy. It's so lovely to see you. We can't hear you.
Yeah, I've just unmuted now.
You were unmuted. Lovely to see you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here, Sue, Reg. Thank you. It's wonderful. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we've got a lot of people that need your wisdom. I think in this time of change over the last year, there's never been a time more poignant when people have changed their lives. They're looking for how they can change their mindset. And I think for a lot of people in the spiritual world, sometimes they find that the thought of being wealthy is not necessarily a very spiritual thing to be. But let's delve into your story, because we know that it's you've got a big story, Judy, and maybe you'd like to share with everyone how things have changed for you and what happened to you and why your mindset is what it is and how you help others to really have a very positive mindset.
Deserving mindset. It's knowing that they deserve the freedom to live life to the fullest extent of their potential. That's materially as well as spiritually. And I had a very fortunate experience when I was around about 15 years old. And people often talk about near-death experience. So I had a few of those, but this was the first one. It wasn't so much a near-death experience. It was a trauma-related experience. Like I'd been through torture for 24 hours. And this was during a time when I was locked up, right, imprisoned as a child, growing up, isolated from the world and used as a sex slave and tortured regularly, if not daily. And one particular occasion I never forget, I woke up, I'd fallen asleep with a gun to my head. And I didn't know I was going to wake up. And when I did wake up, it was the weirdest thing because it had this bright light coming into the room, which was the sun, but the room was so light. I had to actually touch myself to figure out if I was alive or dead, because we don't know what death is, do we? I realized I was alive, and I remember I walked into the bathroom, closed the door, and I looked at the mirror. I looked in the mirror, and when I saw what looked back at me, I realized I wasn't looking at this mortal body. I was looking at something different. There was something different. And as I looked harder, looked into my eyes, it was almost like reaching into my eyes. I didn't see my mortal body any longer. I was reaching down into something deep inside of me, which I then in that moment called my something. As a 15-year-old, not educated, not going to school, had been locked up since I was very young, and tortured a lot. I had very few words, okay, in my vocabulary. So I reached and I called it in that moment my something. And in that moment, I got insight into the truth of who we are. And I just saw so much. I saw the beauty of the universe, and I saw that we are so much more than the mortal body that we live in, that this physical container that we exist in. In that moment, I felt like I could hear the leaves and I was one with the leaves. I could hear the rain on the windows. I was one with the rain. I could hear the grass, hear the birds. And it was like this moment where I was the universe was me. And everything was just so much more expanded. And in that moment, my life went from I was nothing. I existed only as a piece of meat, as a body, as just a thing. I was overpowered. I was in pain. I was just a blob, is the best way I could put it. And in that moment, everything changed. And I saw perfection. I saw love. I saw joy. I saw peace. I saw compassion. And I saw appreciation. And I had got that that became me. And no matter from that moment on, I was able to access that beauty, that perfection, that peace, that joy, that love. And I was no longer overpowered. I was no longer this blob. I was something. I mattered. I meant something. I had a vision. I knew without a shadow of a doubt that everything that I desired, everything I dreamt of, everything that I wanted, everything that I truly my heart and soul desired was mine, and I could just take it. And in that moment, the weirdest thing happened in the few days that happened after that. The weirdest thing, I started getting a vision for what it is my life was going to be. And I started forging that path, even though it was to be a number of years before I escaped from that imprisonment. But I began to get really clear on what it is my life would be and how it would become. And the funny thing is, I was not educated, right? I didn't go to school. But I started asking my father, who was locking me up, I want books on finance. I want books on economics. I want books on the history of money. I want to understand what makes the world go round. And in that moment, I started studying finance and money. It's the weirdest thing. From this deeply spiritual experience came this desire to understand wealth, money, business, economics. And And then, I don't know, as it went on, I studied accountancy. I studied all forms of business and business models. I studied Adam Smith. I studied like the greatest philosophers on money and wealth building. And I knew that when I did escape, I was clear about what it is I wanted to do. I wanted to be a trader. And I wanted to get a job in oil and gas or shipping or merchant banking or stockbroking. That was very clear. Now, against all odds, no education, right? So I eventually escaped, got over to London. My first job was an accountant for a trading floor, oil and gas. I created that reality, and my journey has just gone on from there. And the more I work, the more I study, the more I research, the more I understand that every single time we say no to what our heart and soul truly desires, we shut ourselves down more. We are given a dream when we were born. We were given a vision for what our life was to be, is to be. And it's our birthright to live that to the fullest extent of our potential. That includes living to the fullest extent of our material potential, as well as our spiritual potential. It's one and the same. They're inseparable. You cannot separate the inseparable. Money is nothing but the spiritual manifestation. There's a manifestation of spirit. That's all it is.
Yes, it's the physical manifestation of everything that we think about. So, you know, if you think you can, then you're right. And if you think you can't, then you're right too. So
by trying to separate money and spirit, you're trying to separate the inseparable.
Yes.
Every time you say no to something that your heart and soul desires, you're trying to separate the inseparable. You're shutting yourself down. You're denying your spirit and your soul.
And that generally comes from beliefs, doesn't it? I mean, we've been taught, I don't know about the culture that you were raised in, but I know the culture I was raised in. Money is bad. It's the root of all evil. Only, you know, all wealthy people are bad and ripoffs, and they've only got wealthy because of whatever. So there's a lot of negativity around that. And like you say, if you try to separate the two, it's very difficult. It's just like separating the fact that, you know, we are in control of our health. You know, and if we look at why we're dealing with ailments and issues, we don't want to look inward and say, oh, that's my own fault because of my lifestyle choices. We always look out for something else. And finance is exactly the same, from what I understand you're saying.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It's like what I call, you got to marry your inner technology with the outer technology. You can't separate what's inside of us and what's outside of us. We are your spiritual beings having a mortal experience. So how can you say that when you're born and you're born with a vision for what it is you would love your life to be, you're born with a purpose in life, and with that vision, when God, the universe, nature gave you that vision, gave you that desire, gave you that dream, you also have everything within you to create it and make it a reality. And that includes having the material resources to make it a reality.
Yes, that's exactly right. That reminds me of a story that I once told when I was on stage. I had quite a large live group that I was talking in front of, and very spiritual people. And I was asking the audience a lot of times, you know, what's your goal? What do you think is spiritual? How do you see yourself spending, you know, if you had all the money in the world and you could do anything you wanted and achieve anything you want, what would you do? And the most common question, or the answer was, oh, you know, I'd love to go do a retreat on a mountain, or go disappear, you know, and sit up on top of a mountain and go, you know, inwards and start learning how to meditate and doing this and doing that. And I thought about that as these people, I kept getting the same answers over and over in different ways. And I thought, you know what, if the end of your life, or after the end of your life, and you're sitting on Buddha's lap or wherever you end up, and he says, what did you do with your life? And you said, oh, I sat on the top of a mountain and I got very clear with who I am and with where I was going, and I worked hard to reconnect with you, compared to the other person that said, oh man, I had all these awesome natural gifts that you gave to me, and I went out and shared them with the world. You know, and I learned and I experienced and I did, and I made all kinds of mistakes, but I did all kinds of wonderful things, and I lived my life to the full. You know, which is going to be, you know, if I think of a creator that's given us these magical and amazing natural gifts that we all have, why are we not using them? And why is it bad that we do? And why are we always told to conform and to settle and to, don't stand out and don't be the best that you can and don't put yourself first? That's never made any sense to me. So that's what Rijooviness and Be You really is all about. And you're saying the same on the financial side of it, which I totally agree with.
100%. It's there's so much, and I think it's largely the result of how we have evolved in a society over the years, because we weren't always like that. If you read ancient texts, right, just you know this, we weren't always like that. No. Wealth, is well-being. That's the origin of the word of wealth, is well-being. And over the years, we've distorted and we've made bad words out of deeply meaningful words like desire. I mean, people think that if they say that I'm going to fulfill my heart and soul's desires, they are afraid of that because society has determined that that is selfish, that is greedy. They've put judgment on to lock us down, lock our spiritual side down. And this has become ingrained in us. And so when we are born and into families, and when our brain waves are at the lowest, like theta levels, really low levels, where we are receiving information without cognitive without cognitive realization, we are taking that on board as fact. We're not discerning it. So when you're told stuff like, "Oh, don't be silly," as a child, you don't take into account tonality. You don't take into account the situation where a parent who's trying to park a car, for example, and you're creating havoc in the back seat, and your mom or dad turns around and says, "Stop being silly and stop being a pain," or whatever it is, perfectly innocent comments. They land on us, and we take them on board, and we start defining ourselves by that, because our brains, fire and wire and synaptically connect, and that becomes our definition. And then as we go through life, we take on board the fact that we're silly or that we're stupid or we're not clever or whatever, based on one scenario that happened many years ago. And then we set out, because that's the way our ego works. That's the way the reptilian brain works. That's the way the monkey brain works, is that it's got to prove it's right. So you've got this belief about yourself. It's got to prove that it's right. So each time we do that, we're moving further and further and further away from our spiritual self. And so what happens is, and this is encouraged in society, is the type of society we're largely living in, is we're looking outside of ourselves all the time for answers, for belonging, for reaffirmation of that we are worthy and we deserve. And to think that for us to be able to say something like fulfilling my heart and soul's desires is a bad word, there's so much judgment associated with that. And that just then pulls us further and further away. And I believe we're close to a tipping point at the moment, because and it's coming out with all the vitriol we see as a result, which has been heightened by all this stuff that's going on in the past year. The vitriol coming out at the moment, we're at a tipping point. And that tipping point is, we're going to have, it's almost like we're being pushed to the wall. We're going to have no further to go. We're just going to have to take that journey back into ourselves, which is why, guys like yourself with your program is so needed right now, because people don't know where to go. That this point, where's the truth? Where do I find the way forward? People are hungry to find that answer right now, to solve the pain, to solve the dissociative side of themselves, to find the truth of who they are. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Absolutely.
Totally makes sense. And I think, people think it's unhealthy to have a wealthy mindset. And that's something that what do you say to somebody who says that to you? Because obviously I'm sure that you're coaching this all the time, online. That's what you do all day, is coach people to get their mindset right, get their financial portfolio right. That's how you help people, is to create their financial freedom and give them that support. And if you want to get in contact with Judy, her details are running along the bottom, and we'll give you some more insight to that in a moment. But what do you say to people, Judy? What do you do with them? Well,
wealthy mindset people have a preconceived idea that that means money. Money is the effect. Wealth is the cause. Wealth is a state of being. Any area of life you're not empowered, or you're not wealthy in, or you're not empowered in, you're going to be overpowered. And if you're not empowered financially, you're not empowered in life. Because if you're not financially empowered, you're constantly stuck in the scarcity, lack, fear, shame, guilt, and that pulls your consciousness down. And that's where you get stuck in that area where you focus on it, where you're focusing on it all the time. And that's when you're going to get more. If you focus, you get what you focus on 100%. So it starts with being abundant, or seeing or feeling abundance, seeing the abundance in your life as you are right now in all areas of your life. So that's the first place I work. Where is your wealth? It might not yet be in money, but money is only one part of the ingredient. Money is only 1/7 of the formula. Okay, there's intellect, your physical, your mental, your social, your family, your relationships. Where is your wealth? Look elsewhere outside of money. Where have you got abundance? And when you start stepping into that, appreciating that, you lifting yourself out of those lower levels of consciousness, where you can start sort of like being a magnet, or magnetizing what it is that you would absolutely love. You cannot create when you're in the lower levels of consciousness, where all you're seeing is scarcity, lack, fear, shame, guilt, regret. Right? The only time you can do that, the only time you can create, because we're natural creators. We are natural creators. We don't need education. We don't need formal education. We don't need to be taught. We can access universal intelligence, the universal knowledge to create and be and do whatever it is that we would like, as long as it falls within the realms of the laws of the nature. Of course, we can't all of a sudden develop wings, but we can create whatever it is that we would love. But you can only do that when you open up your inner creative, and you can only do that when you're on the higher levels of consciousness. You can only do that when you see abundance in your life as it is, and that is where the effect is that you get more financial resources, you get more money.
You have this great pyramid here. How would you work that into what you were just talking about?
This is the basis of what I've just been sharing, is the Trilogy of Transformation. The thing is that we have a misconception about challenges and obstacles and experiences that we have. We label them, we judge them, we're polarized by them. And the one thing that I learned, that in that experience I had when I was 15, that there's balance in everything. We live in, life, there's two sides. There's duality in absolutely everything. No matter what you've experienced, there are blessings in what you've experienced. And so after many years, when I did escape, I've spent 25 years researching human behavior and human potential, consciousness, trying to understand, one, what would create a situation where somebody would do that to another human, like for me, and two, how does somebody like me move on in life from that scenario? And that's where the Trilogy of Transformation was born, which is, in my opinion, the most transformational process in the world, most powerful transformation process in the world. So we look at all of our challenges, look at all of the obstacles and the judgments we have about all our perceptions and everything we've experienced. Find the balance, come out of polarization, come back into balance, see the perfection and how it has actually served us. And that's what I call charging your challenges. And there's a process we go through to do that. It's like with my experiences, apart from the fact I wouldn't want them any other way. All right. So I've got a choice. Either I become a victim to those experiences or master of my destiny. I have a choice, and I chose master of my destiny. And in that choice, when I made that choice, I was able to see the blessings, because the one thing that experience gave me, it gave me clarity on what my purpose in life is, my number one value, my North Star. And that is being empowered in all areas of life and empowering others. Your greatest challenges create your greatest voids. Your greatest voice is what you spend your life fulfilling. They become your values, and your top number one value is the expression of your purpose in life. And the more clarity we have around that, we will create what it is we would love in our heart and soul. We would absolutely create everything that we would love in order for us to live a life to the fullest extent of our potential. And that's what the Trilogy of Transformation does. So when you start balancing all these perceptions, seeing the blessings and everything, where nothing was missing, there is nothing you cannot put your hand on your heart and say, I love it, I'm grateful, thank you, I love it. If there's nothing that if there's nothing that you cannot do that with, you can move on to capitalizing your challenges, what I call capitalizing. Capitalizing in any form you choose to, not from a position of lack, but from a position of empowerment. And you can create, whether it's capitalizing your challenges, whatever it might be, whether you want to be philanthropic or a Sir Richard Branson, it doesn't matter what it is, but you create what it is, what you create in your life, what it is your heart and soul desires, from a place of empowerment, not a place of lack, from a place knowing that you deserve it, that's your purpose. Not everyone's destined to be a multi-millionaire. Not everyone's destined to be a billionaire. And this is the thing. Most people are seeking money for money's sake. Money is the effect. It's not the cause, right? You're seeking money, it will give you nothing but emptiness. But when you are living and fulfilling your heart and soul's desires, what happens is you have the wealth, the financial wealth. You create the financial wealth to fulfill that heart and soul desires. And that's the thing. Most people don't know what it is that they would love in their life because they are subordinating to outside agendas, to the noise that exists all around us.
To other people's opinions, right?
Yes.
That's why that great saying is, success comes, or fulfillment in life comes, in the absence of other people's good opinions.
100%.
When we stop worrying what other people think, feel, say, or do, and we focus on being the best version of ourselves possible, well, that's when the magnificence is. And it's so, I always find this quite interesting, especially in the coaching world. We hear so much about people wanting to be successful and people wanting to eliminate their issues from the past or whatever. Yet it seems to be the norm that people will choose to live their lives unhappy and unfulfilled and doing what other people want. Right?
Yeah.
So, but the people that we look up to, the people that get paid the ridiculous amounts of money or that are on TV, are those people who stand out. And they're not the same. And they are different. So we look up and put these people on a pedestal, yet at the same time think, oh, well, that's not for me because I don't want to stand out. And I can't be good because I have to put everybody else and everybody else's thoughts and feelings and ideas ahead of mine. Yeah. So it's a real difficult place to kind of figure out where to place that in your mind, how to understand that.
My starting point is, this is my motto: I'd rather have the whole world against me than my own soul.
Exactly.
And I had that epiphany about 22 years ago, about. I went off the rails for a while when I escaped, right? I got this job and a trading accountant, or an accountant for a trading floor. And I was fired after 10 months, not because I couldn't do the job, but I'm not a conformist, or wasn't a conformist, still not. And I ended up being fired from every job. So after a few years, I realized I had to do my own thing. There was a reason for this. But in the meantime, I lost touch with my heart and soul. I lost touch with my something. Because when I escaped and got caught up in life, and I was chasing money, I was chasing success, I was chasing luxury, I was chasing love, I was chasing, and I was succeeding. Everything I put my hand to, I succeeded. And I created a life that people would give their right arm for. I was massively successful in business, massively successful building money. I was massively successful in creating material stuff and in sport. No matter what it is, I was successful at. But after a while, it wasn't enough. It was this emptiness. I was trying to fill a bottomless pit from outside. And eventually I started doing really dangerous sports and then taking really dangerous sports to the extreme. And then I started, that wasn't enough to try and fill this gap in my heart and soul. I started taking overdoses. And over a period of about 18 months, I took 8 or 9 overdoses. Some of them I was lucky to survive. It was not that I wanted to die, but I was looking, I wanted this emptiness gone. Because the problem is I had that fulfillment. I'd had that richness, that wealth inside of me, but now it was gone and I couldn't find it because I was looking outside. That last overdose I took, I woke up and I had an epiphany. And that's when I realized that in the years of hell, where my mortal body was used and abused, I actually, in fact, was in heaven because I had something that nobody and nothing could touch, and that was my spirit. That was my connection with the universe. And in that space, guys, in that space, there was love, abundance, beauty, perfection. There was opportunity. There was it was just amazing. But
Incredible.
when I left and I started seeking outside of me, I had perfection and on the exercise, I had the beautiful car, the beautiful house, I had everything. But I was miserable. I was in hell. Epiphany was the most amazing thing. And that's when I realized I'd rather have the whole world against me than my own soul. Most people are terrified of that, though. They're terrified of it. When I say that to people, they like take a breath and they have this vision. And it's too much for them to comprehend because people, we rely on everything outside of us for meaning, for purpose, for fitting in. But here's the irony about that statement. When you come from that place, you're coming from a place of empowerment, knowing that you deserve to fulfill your heart and soul's desires. And the voice on the inside is louder than all of the distractions and noise on the outside, where you are focused in your life, fulfilling your heart and soul's desires. All right. When you're in that place, what happens is the whole world is not against you. You fly with the eagles and you empower others to fly with you. And you exemplify what is possible for humanity, and you are an inspiration, and others will come and join you. The world is not against you, but you come from that premise. That's where you're at your most inspiring. That's when you are most inspiring.
My father used to have a saying, it's a little difficult to soar with the eagles when you're hanging out with a bunch of turkeys.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
The environment and who you choose to spend your time and your vital energy with is vital to all aspects of your life.
Yeah. And so if anyone's listening, it's like, a lot of what I'm saying, because I had an incident recently where somebody was going to get on a call with me because she's really struggling, really suffering, and lost. And she listens to my various webinars and whatever it is. And she said, please, let's talk. And so I said, fine, let's have a chat. But half an hour before we were due to chat, she canceled because she says, I don't know what you could possibly say to me that's going to change how I feel. Because you've got it all sorted. I don't have it all sorted. We're all a work in progress. We're all going to fall down, but it's about accepting it and loving ourselves enough and knowing that we are worthy enough to get back up, because we matter. Every single soul on the planet matters. But here's where you start. Is what are the thoughts that are going through your mind? What is the language of the thoughts? Where do they come from? That's the first thing. If somebody's really struggling, that I would say to someone is start becoming conscious of the language of the thoughts that you're having, because there's 3 things we can control, and only 3 things to control, no matter who you are or where you are on the levels of consciousness. Only 3 things you can control. You can control your perceptions, your thoughts, and your actions, and they're interrelated. So what are your perceptions? If you perceive that your life's a mess, where is it not a mess? Because I promise you, there will be a place it is not a mess, because we live in duality. Where there's greed, there's generosity. Where there's pain, there's pleasure. Where there's anger, there's joy. Okay, where is the balance? If you think your life's a mess, where is it not a mess? If you think you're broke. Where are you not broke? Start balancing your emotions. Start coming back into center. Narrow that polarized state. That will create a different feeling in your body, because what you think creates feelings, right? Because of all the hormones that get released into your body, and eventually you begin to think how you feel, right? So that will create a different feeling in your body when you're starting seeing that it's not just all negative, there's actually good stuff. We start focusing on what is there in your life. You will naturally create a different feeling. You will naturally rewire your brain, your neurons rewire as you think. That's your starting point. That's the absolute starting point. Because here's the thing, whatever's happened has happened. Okay? We can't change it. I can't change my background. I can't change any of those experiences. But I can either be a victim to my past or master of my destiny. The choice is mine. I'm the cause. What I choose, what I perceive, what I think will impact my actions. And those three things will determine my destiny. It's my choice. I'm the cause. And whatever that route I take, the effect will either be a life of scarcity, lack, fear, regret, shame, guilt, or one of abundance, joy, love, compassion, empathy, and appreciation. It's a choice.
Absolutely.
Amazing. And if you're just tuning in and you're listening to Judy Vee, we're so excited as an entrepreneur and as a wealth coach, and she coaches people all over the world in her own right, not just an author, but a successful multi-million-dollar businesses that she's created all over the world with her husband. And you know, she's been on lots of TV shows, and we're delighted to have her on Rijooviness TV. And today we're really discussing how important it is to have a healthy wealth mindset. And you talk about in your book, Judy, that we have a wealth barometer or thermometer. And what do you mean by that when you say that?
So one of the things in the Trilogy of Transformation that is my primary body of work, one of the things that's come out of that is when I've started to during my research and study and working with people, there's a direct correlation between where you are on that trilogy of transformation and what your net worth is, your physical net worth is. And essentially, the higher you are on the Trilogy of Transformation, the higher levels of self-worth you have, the higher levels of confidence and certainty you have. And that will have a direct correlation to your net worth. Low self-worth, you're going to have low net worth because you're not going to feel worthy. You're going to be focused on lack, focused on scarcity, focused on what you don't have rather than what you do have, in order to be able to have appreciation, compassion, love, empathy, and to create more. The higher levels of consciousness you are, the higher level of self-worth, the higher amount of money, because it's cause and effect. The cause being your state of being, the effect will be higher net worth. And that's where I created the Wealth Thermometer, which essentially is a series of questions that will which highlights where you are on the Trilogy of Transformation. And it is the most incredible process in itself. I mean, there's a whole big process to it and various levels to it, but in its simplest form, it is a series of questions that will let you know where you are on levels of consciousness that will determine your ability to earn, grow, or hold on to, which are three very different skill sets and have three very different drivers, financial wealth. And it's a great eye-opener for people when they actually see it in that form. It represents how they are feeling about themselves, and that's a direct correlation on why they might be struggling, why they're hitting a wealth ceiling, why they just cannot break through, because they know they're made for more. We know it in our heart and soul. We know the truth in our heart and soul. But this is so loud. that it drowns it out.
And isn't it interesting how that is so directly connected to everything else in our lives? The relationships we have, the friendships we have, the health we have, the happiness we have, the home we live in. Everything comes down to that, doesn't it? So when people are complaining constantly, or they're worried or frustrated or confused about why they are living the life they're living in the body they're living in, it really is as simple as taking a step back and being aware of, like you said, your perceptions and your choices, and who you're spending your valuable, vital energy and time with.
100%. Yeah, definitely. I was going to say something, and you said something. I got distracted by. You've got a lovely thing that you say, Reg, but living in your body and being happy with your body. I love it. What
living
is that?
The life you love in the body you love to live in.
I love that. I love it. And I think that could be also taken in so many different ways as well. Living the life you love in the manner that you love it, in your body, socially, in relationships, financially. What makes you think that you don't deserve whatever it is your heart and soul desires? What in God's name would make you think that? Would anyone think that? Why is that possible? But it goes back to the Bible. Even the Bible talks about it. About using the wealth, the gifts that we have to create more, to mean something, to create a legacy life, to matter, to give back. What is our obligation? To live life to the fullest extent of our potential.
Exactly. It's amazing how we are born into abundance, yet we grow into lack.
Yeah, totally, 100%.
We talk a lot, Judy, on the program about people having breakthroughs, and that can be in all areas of your life, whether that you're struggling with any addiction, or whether somebody is, not living in the body they love, or with the person that they love. How do you break through your limiting beliefs on how you can change that? And certainly with wealth, you've mentioned it already, that people reach a ceiling with their financial success. They don't necessarily feel that they're worthy of more, and they put themselves in a bracket. And I always remember when I was a teenager, having a magic number about what I felt I was worth, and strived, and that was my magic number. And how do you help people break through their sort of financial ceilings?
One of the things that I say is that we don't have money blocks, right? There's a lot of noise out there about, overcome money blocks and stuff. We don't have money blocks, because the more we deal with the effect, the more of that effect we're going to get. Okay. So if you're just dealing with money blocks, you're going to keep on having money blocks. We need to shift the cause, right? What is the cause of that? What is the driver? So what are the drivers behind you not creating? Right, creating, not living life to the fullest extent of your potential, not living a life congruent with your values, your purpose. So one of the things is we get really clear on that, get really clear on where they are empowered, where they're not empowered, where they're living aligned with their values, and or subordinating themselves to external values. Which is what most people do, because most people live a life of shoulds, musts, ought tos, rather than they would love to, they would like to, right? So that's the one thing. So understand where they're at right now. And when you start living life in a life that's congruent with your values, you cannot help but be of service to humanity, be of service in your life, in your community, in your family. And through the law of fair exchange, which is a basic law of nature, you will be rewarded. Now, here's the thing. One of the things, as you know, I've got a company called Tribe of Traders, and we work with traders all over the world to become profitable. All right, and we do that through opening up their spirituality, opening up their intuition, trading from the heart. That's what we do. When traders join us, the first question I ask them is, what is your goal? Why are you trading? They never come when they join. They don't come to me with, this is the vision they have for their life, and this is what they would love. This is their purpose. No, they come to me and they say they want to make 20 million, 50 million, $1 billion. I've even had somebody say, right? Yes, the data shows that's possible. For sure, that's possible. Anything's possible, right? But what are you the person to create that yet? Because people think and have a fault. They don't, most people, because it's not taught, it's not talked about, people don't understand money and don't understand wealth. So people think in order to be wealthy, they need multi-millions. But hold on a second. Is that something your heart and soul truly desires? Is that what your heart and soul truly desires? Because people like Richard Branson, would you say that he spends his life working to create wealth, to create great opportunities, to create businesses, breakthroughs and stuff like that? But you've got somebody else, maybe like Rose Kennedy, all right, who was a mother. And she was asked once, what's her purpose in life? And she said, to raise a family of world leaders. It's not always about money, but yet as a society, we're constantly chasing money. So I work with the traders who join us to reverse engineer. What is it that would make you truly happy? What is it that your heart and soul desires right now with your current thinking? What would make your heart and soul sing? So we get to what we call their freedom number. 9.9999 times out of 10, they come to me with like a 20, 40, 50 million number. They come back, that freedom number is like 300,000, 500,000. So in other words, if they didn't have to work for another 10, 15, 20 years, and they had that amount of money, they knew that they could draw on that each and every month and they wouldn't have to earn any money for the next 10, 15 years. I say to them, do you think you would be financially powered if you had that number right now? They would say, yeah, definitely, because they wouldn't have to stress, worry, or be concerned with making ends meet, earning a living. Whoever come up with that? Earning a living? We deserve a living. And so when I get them to get that number, and when they apply that to their trading, all of a sudden they can relate to it, because they come in with a fantasy of wanting 20, 50, whatever million, which is a fantasy, a number that they can't relate to when they're barely getting by each month, maybe, or just a little bit of surplus. And now they've got a number that they can relate to. They won't sabotage it. They won't experience, what's that word for it? Imposter syndrome. When you're aligned with what it is that your heart and soul truly desires, when your goals are aligned with that, when you're clear about what that is. Now that doesn't mean that that's your lot in life. That number is your lot in life. It is getting you. It's a strategy I have of getting people out of lack and out of a fantasy into reality, and to start creating that so that they can become financially empowered as a starting point, and from there, your life takes on a whole different trajectory. So you can imagine somebody coming into trading who maybe earns 2,000, 2,500 a month, or 5,000 or 10,000 a month, right? Comes in whichever currency, and he or she's got a target of 20, 30, 50 million with a net worth of maybe 100,000. And they want to get that in 5 years, you're going to sabotage. You can't relate to it. There's no part of your body, mind, and soul that can relate to it. But you bring that down to something that's really that you can connect with, every fiber in your body can connect with. You're going to make sure that you do what it takes to create it because you believe in it. You're not going to sabotage it. And this other, like, imposter syndrome is not going to come in. This who do you think you are noise and voice is going to come in. And on that journey of creating that level of freedom, that level of financial freedom, that's a journey of transformation. And as you're taking that journey of transformation, that number increases. That's how it works.
Awesome.
Absolutely phenomenal. I'm sure there are so many people who, as we said at the beginning of the program today, could really value your support. How can people get in touch with you, Judy, so that you do a couple of coaching online groups? I know that. What is the best way to get started on your own personal wealth creation? How can you help people to do that?
Well, the first thing I would invite people to do is to take the Wealth Builder Profile quiz. That would be the first thing, to take that. That will give you an idea of where you're at. But here's the thing. I would urge you to be really, really honest with yourself. Now, one of the hardest things that is for us in life is to be honest with ourselves. It really is. It's not easy. But dig deep. Because as I say, you deserve the freedom that wealth brings. You deserve it, right? So give yourself permission to be honest and take that quiz and see where you're at. Then, because I've got a few programs that people can do, but if they do that, they will see where they are at right now. And I give them some pointers as to what to look out for and what the next step is. But one of the most powerful things that we can do when we're embarking on a transformational journey is to be clear about where we are at. And the second thing is to be clear about where we would love to get to. We will create 100% to the extent that we are clear, but only to the extent to which we are clear. And again, is one of the issues that most people are not clear. And the reason because they're not clear is because their dream, their heart and soul dream and desires are there, they're always there. But over the years, it's been drowned out by the noise of the ego and the noise of judgments and the noise of perceptions. And they've created thoughts and they've created feelings. So now feelings now dominate our thoughts. And so this is what causes imposter syndrome. This is what causes procrastination, hesitation, inner conflict, and dis-ease. 100%.
Dis-ease in the mind creates dis-ease in the body.
In the body, totally. And I think sorry, Sue.
No, I was just saying, I think, people are starting to come out of the last year realizing all over the world now that things are easing up and realizing the impact of what's happened to them personally, physically, emotionally, from a job, relationship, all of that.
Yeah.
So actually, there's never been a better time for people to take coaches in the aspects of their life where they need the support most. If you need a body transformation, then you get a PT involved, you go on a retreat, you get a mentor to support you. And it's the same with your financial element of your being, is that you need a coach to support you and get your head right.
Totally. Absolutely. And there's one thing that I talk about the 80-20 rule of trading, 80-20 rule of wealth building. And the 80 being, that's 80% of our attention and focus we would be wise to put onto our mindset, our state of being. And only 20% of our effort into the actual act of wealth building or trading, right? Because what I always say is, get the 80 right, the 20 takes care of itself. The thing is, the interesting thing about money is, and again, this is another, like a whole different conversation we could have. The thing about money is that it creates, the same with trading, it's like a magnifying glass over our insecurities, and it highlights the cracks. When we start addressing that, we take that inner transformational journey. What happens is the effect transforms, which is wealth. So we actually get paid, make more money, taking that inner transformational journey to more joy, inner peace, love, compassion, and empathy and appreciation.
Yeah. As you know, being a coach, you probably get the similar questions that we get. And so many people say they know that, or they've tried that, or they've experienced that. They've taken a course, they've read the book, they've gone through experiences, they've tried and tried and tried, but it's not working. Even though we have this knowledge, and we hear this doesn't matter across whatever extreme that we're talking about, health and wellness, or relationships, or money, or whatever. So as far as money goes, what are 3 actual steps, 3 real steps that somebody can take today, right now, and implement into their life to help them through what it is that you guide people through?
Well, the first thing, take the Wealth Builder Profile quiz. That's the first thing. Identify where you're at right now. Okay. The second thing is, that's where you are spiritually, emotionally, mentally. The second thing is if I was to ask you right now, what is your net worth? Would you be able to tell me? My experience, 99.999% of people would not be able to give me that number. Okay, clean your house up, right? Get clear. Most people don't even open their credit card statements. Most people don't go through their accounts. This is the practical side, okay? They're so afraid of it that they're not master of it. They are a slave to money. They are a slave. They don't allow their money to work for them. right? It runs them rather than them running it. Get clear about where your money's going. Get clear about what your net worth is. And then the third thing, which is the most transformational thing that you can do to get you onto the wealth pyramid, and that is open up what I call a bulletproof account. And that bulletproof account is no matter what you have coming in every month, the first thing you do is you put 10% of it away into an account that you never, ever touch. Never touch. 10%. Some people say, can't do 10%. I bet you can. If you're really clear about where your money's going, and if you're really clear about what it is you would truly love to create in your life, you will find it. But if you can't, start with a lower percent and each month increase it by 1% till you get to 10%, because you won't miss 1%. Okay. Then after 3 months, you increase that 10% by 10%. So after 3 months, it's now 10% of 10%. 10% of 10 is 1. So 3 months later, it's 11%. Then 3 months later, you increase that by 10%. And you're putting it away. The first thing you're paying every month, pay yourself first because you deserve it. Before you pay credit cards, before you pay mortgage, insurance, whatever it is, you pay yourself first. And that money is a bulletproof account. It is not to be touched. That's the foundation of your wealth pyramid. I've had people fight and scream me on this one, but a year later, 3 years later, 5 years later, they have gone from living in a life of debt to financial freedom. And it all started with a bulletproof account. Because how you feel after a few months of having this money building up. Yeah, for the first few months, depending on what it is, it doesn't look like much, doesn't feel like much. But as it grows, what is that going to do for you? What is it going to do for your relationship with self-worth, yourself, with money, with wealth, with what it is you can create? And then more than that, the practical side of it, after a year, 2 years, 3 years, you would have enough cash in there that no matter what happens in your life, you've got resilience. You've got a couple of months. If everything went pairs up and you had no income coming in for a few months, you have a foundation. You will never need to use it. That's the irony is, because I've had people say, yeah, but what do I do with it eventually? You do nothing with it ever. It's like you cannot build a house without solid foundations. That bulletproof account is your solid foundation. You don't ever touch it. You will never need to touch it. And when you adopt this way of being, everything starts to change. And from that foundation, you build wealth.
Love that. It's often known as the golden egg that the goose never, uses. It's something that I've been told before, and it's really important. Yeah, such wise words, Judy. We could go on for days talking about.
It's already an hour flown by.
I know, it's so exciting. So Judy's written a book. We actually have it on our Rijooviness.com. You can go into our Emporium shop, and it's there. And equally, you can go onto Judy's website and buy The Truth About Trading as a book. And also, the key thing here is that really that being wealthy, being healthy, they go hand in hand, because so many people have been super stressed over the last few months because it's been a financial impact in their life that causes health issues. And so it's really important to address, as we say, everything affects everything. And that, if you do need a mentor, then there's no better person than Judy Vee. So, do reach out to her. Her details are on our website as well. And do share this program with all your friends. It's on YouTube as of later on this afternoon. And, get the message out there to people that, it's time really to empower yourself, to support yourself, your family, your future, your dreams, your desires, all of those things that Judy has covered today. And, one last final thing, Judy, that you'd like to share with the audience today, any sort of, key golden nugget that you'd really like to leave everyone with?
No matter what you've done or not done, no matter what experience you've had or have not had, There is no earthly challenge that you are not greater than. There's no earthly challenge you cannot find blessings in, and you cannot thrive from, and you cannot use as rocket fuel to create the life that you would love, because you deserve it. It is your birthright. It's also your obligation to live a life to the fullest extent of your potential.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Wow.
And that's it.
Well,
Another day gone by.
Where did the hour go? Judy, thank you so much again, from our heart to yours and from our home to yours. And we know that you're also in Barbados living the life that you love. And
yes.
Well, that makes us super happy too. And we look very much forward to having you back on the show again in the future and sharing your wisdom, and with huge gratitude. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for sharing your time. We look forward to seeing you again.
So